esta mañana voy a traer una persona, María Enriquez, una persona que si uno mira la biografía de ella, que ella me hizo, se ha dedicado su vida al teatro.
Al teatro.
Pero recuerda, el teatro necesita personas, no solamente en la tarima o frente de las cámaras. Necesitan personas que iluminación, directores, ¿sabes? Un equipo.
Sí, que son los responsables de que si algo sale mal, todo se arruina, sí, o todo sale bien. Es una obra excelente. Ellos son los responsables, tienen una responsabilidad sobre sus hombros grandísima.
Entonces también ella es una educadora de teatro.
Excelente, mano.
Que es algo importante, porque hay alguna gente que tienen suerte, como el primo mío, ¿verdad? Que no estudió actuación, necesitaban un boxeador, lo vieron a él boxear, le dijeron, mira, te contratamos para esta película, y desde ahí hizo una carrera. Okay.
Sí, pues yo tengo un primo que no es artista, pero te monta unas historias increíbles. Vamos entonces con María Zoila Enriquez, más de 20 años creando teatro.
Yeah.
Y está entre nosotros, señores.
Yeah. So, Maria, good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Wilfredo. I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Maria, you've been working in the theater for more than 20 years. And
yes, I started when I was 2 years old.
You know,
I'm 22 years old. No, I'm much older than that. But yeah, I've been in theater for over 20 years.
You know, and I was talking to Hector before you came on that, you know, people don't realize that in theater, it's not only the actors up front, but the whole team. You know, it's lighting, it's carpenters, it's director. You know,
yes,
and that is part of the team that people sometimes don't realize and don't get recognized enough.
Son los creadores de la magia.
Yeah. And yeah. And then the other thing is that you are an educator, okay? And again, in theater. And one thing, I have a cousin of mine, John said, I don't know if he's done some movies and TV series. You know, he was lucky. He was a boxer, and they needed a boxer in the movie, and it so happened that the film's producer was watching his fight and decided, I want to use that guy in the movie, and he was able to parlay that into a whole career. But but that's not everybody, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's funny that you say that, because originally I was not going to go into theater. My original plans was to go to law school. And yes, and I started college, and my intention, like I said, it was always to go to law school. I used to watch like Perry Mason and those old law shows.
Yeah.
And I just like imagined myself, you know, going in. It was very dramatic, so I was always theatrically inclined. But yeah, I ended up getting kind of like drawn into theater because I always loved to dance. I was always a dancer.
Okay.
And they just needed dancers for the chorus of their shows. And they asked me, and I was like, sure, I can dance for you. And then after that, I just fell in love with theater.
You got the bug.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something.
I totally got the bug.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Toledo, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I was born and raised. My grandparents are originally from Mexico, and they were migrant farm workers. They moved from Mexico to the valley in South Texas, Brownsville, West Laco, that area.
Yeah.
And then they ended up moving up to Ohio because my grandpa had a truck, and he hired some guys, and they worked the fields there in Ohio, the Ohio farmlands. So that's how my family all ended up in Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Here on the East Coast, a lot of the Latinos who came here came as still coming as agricultural workers, except it's different nationalities, you know. But
exactly.
But that is giving them an opportunity to move forward. So at what age did you decide? Was it when? At what age, more or less, were you when you did your first dance in the theater?
I was probably about 18 years old.
Okay.
And I was very much enamored by theater. I loved it. And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I think I want to major in theater. And she said, absolutely not. She was like,
I think that would be a response from most parents, you know.
Yes, well, and it's understandable. It was just Mom and I growing up. My father was not in the picture, and you know, and we struggled financially. We didn't have a lot of money or food at times, and so my mom wanted me to have, you know, a better life.
Sure.
And she, you know, and the reality is that theater can be very unstable.
Yes.
And she thought, right? And to go from law school to theater was such a drastic swing that she was reluctant for me to go into theater. But I loved it. And so after I graduated, I was fortunate enough to get a job doing children's theater in Cleveland, Ohio, a full-time job. And that allowed me some of that stability to kind of gain the experience that I needed in theater to continue doing it for a full-time profession.
Yeah. And also eat.
Yes, exactly.
Let's take a pause, and Hector and I will do a brief summary.
Bien interesante, hermano, la vida de esta artista, María Zoila Enríquez. Ella jamás pensó que su carrera iba a ser en el teatro. Lo de ella era las leyes, ir a la escuela de leyes. Y es una historia bonita, definitivamente. Es la historia de muchos aquí en los Estados Unidos, muchos hermanos de muchos de nuestros países, sobre todo nuestros hermanos de México, de Centroamérica. Ella dice que comenzó, a ella le gustaba siempre bailar, necesitaban a alguien para una obra que bailara, y la invitaron, y ahí comenzó todo. Ella creció dentro de una familia de agricultores en Ohio, en Toledo, Ohio. Sus padres son de México, gente humilde, pero muy trabajadora. Ella y su mamá quedaron solas y no tenían mucho dinero. Y su mamá, obviamente, cuando ella le dijo, mami, yo creo que el teatro es lo mío, la mamá le dijo, no, eso no.
Me imagino a la mamá más diciendo, muchacha, está loca.
Obviamente, todas las madres, todos los padres quieren lo mejor para sus hijos. Y ella quizás pensaba que eso no va a ser algo que va a traer los frutos que yo quiero para ti, etcétera, etcétera. Yo quiero decirle a María, y creo que se lo voy a decir en español, si ella no me entiende, yo creo que tú se lo digas en inglés. Yo pienso que María tiene una historia para una obra teatral, casi una película, de verdad, con lo poquito que he escuchado de ella. Y la felicito, definitivamente.
Did you get that, María?
Solamente un poquito.
Oh, sí. María, I think you have enough to write your own story.
Yeah, yo entiendo, pero I don't have anybody a practicar. So my speaking it is very, very poor.
Okay, you try.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yes.
What Hector said is that you have a real interesting story, and that maybe you should write a work about yourself.
Oh, maybe that's in the future, Wilfredo.
Okay.
Down the line, down the road.
Okay. Es interesante como uno conoce gente. Yo la conocí a ella en preparación para la presentación de Kiara Alegría, estuvimos en una conversación con otras personas. I was telling Hector how I met you, that we were in the phone conversation in preparation. No, it was a Zoom, I think. I forget anyway. In preparation for Kiara's visit. Okay.
Yes.
And by the way, I got to see the movie. So
isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting to see our stories being told on the big screen in such a fantastic way. I was really, the company I work with, Teatro Paloma, we went to the movie theater and we saw In the Heights, and we saw it together as a group, and it was just such a proud moment for all of us.
You know what really I liked is the way they took the song, the melody of it's Que Bonita Bandera, la bandera puertorriqueña, but they made it universal. Okay.
Yes.
And I think they showed the Puerto Rican, Dominican, Mexican, Cuban. I don't know what other ones, but I like the way they did that, and that dance number was really great. Now, specifically, Maria, let's say in the last 5 years, what roles have you played in the theater?
Well, I actually was in The Heights. I was in a stage production of In the Heights.
Okay.
Now, the role you're probably going to ask me, well, which role did you play? But actually, the movie version is a little different from the stage version.
Yeah.
In the stage version, Nina, the girl who is coming home from college, she actually, her mother is there. So it's her mother and her father. Her mother's name is Camila, and that's who I played. And in the staged version, Camila acts as a moderator between the father, and her daughter. She's a peacemaker between the two of them, and she sings a song that says enough. She's like, I'm tired of the fighting between you two, and there's just going to be peace. And so that was all cut out of the movie, but that's the role that I played in the stage version.
Okay. And how long did you do that?
How often did I do that?
Well, how long did you?
That was probably, back in 2015, I believe. And that was at the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
That was back in Pittsburgh.
Got it. Now, you direct, I think for Teatro Paloma, the last production they did, you were in charge of lighting, if I'm not mistaken, or?
Yeah, I was the sound designer. We did a production called Looking Bilingue, which is actually, it was a show created from the YouTube clips and podcasts that Jade Centron, she's a company member, she creates. And it's all stories of Latinidad and, people's experiences being, Latino, Latina, and also being bilingual, or the relationship with Spanish language and English. And so we created, the company, we created this show together and performed it online over YouTube. And so, and I was in charge of the sound, all the music and all of the sound effects for that.
Great. Una artista como ella, una persona que conoce tanto sobre la actuación y el trabajo que hay al frente y detrás de bastidores. Yo tengo una pregunta y estoy seguro que esto va a beneficiar a muchos de nuestros jóvenes y padres que tienen jóvenes que los ven, se paran frente al espejo y empiezan a hacer cualquier tipo de actuación. ¿Nace un niño siendo artista o necesita esa educación definitiva para convertirse en un actor o una actriz?
Hector's question is, can a child be born with that talent to be an actor, or they need to really have training as an actor?
Oh, Hector, that's a great question. That is a really, really good question. I think some people are probably born with the talent to act or to perform. I think some people just naturally gravitate towards it. But I think along with the talent, you really do need discipline. You know, you need, and it might not necessarily be training, like going to school for it, but you do need to be disciplined in, you know, getting better at the art, practicing, getting experience to sharpen those skills. I do believe that I teach theater, I teach acting classes at Penn State Harrisburg, and I see so many students who they lack confidence and they don't think that they can perform because they've never done it before. But I do believe that most people have the ability to act, and that's because we do it in our everyday lives, you know, in some way or another, whether you're, you know, trying to as a child, get something from your parent, you're trying to convince them to, like, let them, like, borrow the car keys, or your spouse, you know, if you forget an anniversary and they're upset with you, you're, oh, you guys are laughing. Has this happened to you? You know, that we act in our everyday lives. And so I think because of that, we all have the ability to perform.
Okay, excelente, señores.
Because we called on in our daily lives to perform. So, you know.
Señores, estamos hablando con nuestra invitada María Zoila Enriquez, y acabamos de descubrir que ella estuvo también, formó parte de lo que es In the Heights como productora de tarima, ¿verdad?
No, bueno, en The Heights ella era parte, una actriz.
Una de las actrices de
un papel que no está en la película.
Que no está en la película, exacto. Le hice una pregunta, señores, porque vemos o conocemos de algún joven, o tenemos en nuestra casa quizás algún joven que usted lo ve frente al espejo diariamente, haciendo algún tipo de movimiento, algún tipo de actuación, y nosotros decimos, este quiere guiarse, esta quiere ser un artista. Señores, le pregunto a ella si un actor o una actriz nace siendo actriz o si se necesita esa educación. Dice ella que una persona sí puede nacer como un artista, pero hace falta esa disciplina. Y eso es muy importante.
Y conocer técnica también.
Y conocer técnicas y demás. O sea, la educación definitivamente es necesaria, sobre todo la disciplina y también conocer. Definitivamente, una excelente respuesta que nos dio nuestra amiga en la mañana de hoy. Hay mucho talento.
Maria, I saw looking bilingual, okay? It was a game show, okay?
Yes.
That's what made it, you know, interesting, okay? And they're, you know, depending on different people in our community, you know, if you're eighth generation Latino, you know, I'm going to doubt it. The majority of those folks are bilingual. You know, but it's interesting how we look at that, okay, and then how the outside society looks at that, you know, and how we forms our opinion. I'm going to use myself as an example. My granddaughter was told by some other little girls that she can't be Puerto Rican because she doesn't speak Spanish, right? So I had to sit down with my granddaughter and say, are they anthropologists or social scientists, okay, to be able to form those opinions in middle school, you know? Other people can't tell you what you are. You decide that in your heart, okay? And I watched that. In fact, I think I had mentioned I watched it with her. I purposely pulled her out of her room, because nowadays their room is their sanctuary.
Yeah.
And we were in the living room watching it, and she stayed the whole time it was on. So I thought it was because it was mainly young people, okay, who were a part. In fact, El Hijo de Sarita, he was in it, because that's something that we care about, but that the overall society just speak English, and that's all you're going to need,
Right. Yeah. And the way that language is used as a gate to keep people out, like you said, here in this country, people are like, speak English. So anybody who might speak another language or doesn't speak English fluently, they're kept out, in different ways. Or like you said, if you don't speak Spanish, then somehow you're not Puerto Rican, you're not Mexican. And, what Looking Bilingual was trying to do was show how language can be a bridge. You might not understand everything, but we're all human, and it's okay to not understand everything because a connection can still be formed. I think back to my grandparents I mentioned who are from Mexico, and my grandpa did not speak any English. He spoke Spanish only. When he came to this country, he was really discriminated against. This was back in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. And, people wouldn't serve him at stores. They would kick him out because he spoke Spanish only. And because of that, he told his children, my mom included, he told them to speak English in the house not because he wasn't proud of the Spanish language, but just because he didn't want them to experience what he was experiencing. And that's the way that Spanish got lost in my family. And so for me, I try to speak it, but I'm very self-conscious about my Spanish. But what helps is when other Latinos are encouraging, and supportive of me just trying the best that I can. And even if I don't get it right, like you said, like just being who you are, and that's okay. I'm still Mexican American. I'm still Latina. I'm still part of our community.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you talk to us a little bit about Paloma Theater or Teatro Paloma?
Yes, I would love to. So Paloma, originally it was Paloma Players,
right.
And it started in 2016, and they did a number of shows, in the park, and they were mostly Spanish plays. And then Marion Wood, who was one of the original founders, she had to leave. And then, the company members just got busy, and the theater was quiet. It went dark for a while. But then in 2019, I met Kat Rodriguez, and who was in the original company, and we met with Jose, and we decided to go ahead and rebuild the theater company, and we renamed ourselves Teatro Paloma. And so in the fall of 2019, we performed the Hispanic Zone from Guillermo Reyes, and we performed it at the Spanish American Civic Association, as well as Taliesin Downtown. And we also produced in March, right before COVID shut everything down, we produced a community talent show, which was really, really a highly successful show, a number of performers, a number of community members. So those were the things that we did right before COVID.
Maria, since we're on Paloma Players, and correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it started by a group of kids that enjoyed performing when they were in high school at McCaskey, and they wanted to figure out a way to continue
Yes.
Their creativity.
Yes, that's exactly it. It was, a group of McCaskey high school students. They graduated, like you said, they had theater experiences, and then they wanted to continue that. And also, too, they saw there wasn't any kind of theater in the area for the Latino community. And so that's how Paloma Players was born. And so one of the things we want to do now that we're going to be returning back, with COVID being over, is we want to return to some of those roots and have more Spanish language plays and productions. I mentioned one of our company members, Jose. He's going to work on a project called Relatos Caribeños. And he did a production of that, but he wants to interview community members, specifically from the Dominican Republic, and create a production, an all-Spanish production, based on those stories.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I saw some of those early shows of Paloma, and in fact, I was at the park, and it was a summer night, and it was hot as hell. And,
Yep.
and they were troopers, and so was the audience. But
Yeah.
It was great. Now, Paloma's next presentation is that the Native Gardens?
Actually, I'm going to be directing that. That's technically with Susquehanna Stage down in Marietta.
Right.
And it's a play by Karen Zacarias, and it's about two sets of neighbors, one couple who's Latino and the other couple who's white. And it's about a dispute they have over the property line. And it kind of just talks about basically how people take ownership over things. And it really is kind of a metaphor for what's happening at the border between U.S. and Mexico. And our former president, who I'm not going to say his name, but the former president and his desire to build a wall. Again, this is talking about walls that are built and how it separates people instead of us coming together.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Marietta.
And that's going to be live. That's going to be a live theater.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. That's going to be live, and that's going to be in August. And then after that, we haven't announced this yet, but the next Teatro Paloma production is going to be a play called Swimming While Drowning by Emilio Rodriguez. And that is a two-person play. It's going to be performed by two folks from our company, and it's about LGBTQ homeless youth. So homeless youth who are LGBTQ.
Now that Native Garden is part of a series of I think 4 works that they're going to be doing in Marietta. Okay.
Yes. It's part of a new series that they have where they're trying to diversify the plays that are produced at the theater there. And you kind of see this movement happening, Wilfredo, with a lot of the area theaters where they're recognizing how they've excluded the Latino community, the Black community, the Asian American community, and they realize, wow, we really need to do something about this.
Yeah.
We need to produce plays written by, these communities. We need to cast actors. So for Susquehanna Stage, this is part of that cultural series. The next play in that series is actually going to be in July, and it's a play called Pipeline, and it's going to be directed by Starlisha Gingrich. And that's Pipeline is about, I'm not as familiar with it, but it's about the kind of the the system that helps. Well, it not helps, but it kind of causes us youth, specifically Black youth, to kind of filter into the prison system. Basically, the brokenness of the education and the prison systems.
Right.
So that's going to be in July, and then Native Gardens is going to be in August.
Right. Well, Maria, it was a pleasure having you and good chatting with you. And
Yes.
I wish all the success to Teatro Paloma. When I first heard of them, I thought they were great. By the way, Starlisha, which is going to be directing Pipeline, I guess she's the director of Disrupt Theater, which is primarily an African-American theater company here in Lancaster. So I think there's some good things happening to show that, well, first of all, show that we've been here, and for the African-American has been here since before this was a country.
Right, exactly.
That we didn't just show up yesterday, you know? So.
Yeah, we've been here longer. So, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of good things happening here. And finally, I think spaces are being created for our community members in places where there hasn't been before.
Maria, if any young actors or want to get some information about Teatro Paloma, where they should go?
There's a website.
Is there a website for them? Okay.
Yes. So just check us out at palomaplayers.org. And we would love anybody who's interested in joining, just reach out to us, or you can follow us on Facebook. Teatro Paloma on our Facebook page. Message us, and then we will get back in touch with them.
Very good.
Maria, the same thing with, let's say, a young person who perhaps needs some guidance in how to develop themselves. Can they contact you, or what do you suggest?
Yes. If you're a younger person who's looking just for community or connection, please reach out to us, via Facebook. And we welcome the community. Even if you don't want to act, if you just want to get involved, we always welcome you community members.
Yeah, and like I was telling Hector, you need people behind
Yes. Like you said,
the scenes.
We definitely need a lot of people.
Well, Maria, I want to thank you, and I'll go out and see Native Gardens, and can't wait for the next Teatro Paloma production. So.
Thank you. Wilfredo and Hector, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the listeners. And, like I said, please follow us on Facebook, and we hope to see you at one of our shows.
Nos vemos en Marietta.
All right. Marietta
Thank
primero, entonces luego.
Maria,
Bueno, Maria, have a great day.
Thank you.